I'm going to walk you through steak on a griddle step by step while going over my 7 best tips, starting with getting the right cut of steak. So ribeye is a really popular one I do a lot. New York strip is another popular one. This is a prime top loin from my butcher, which I believe is another name for New York strip. I'm not exactly a butcher, but it's got a lot of marbling. I always like something with a lot of marbling, and it's nice and thick, so that's what I went with. Those are the 2 I usually go with, but get whatever's in your budget, depending on kind of where you're at. I found this at Kroger. My Meijer usually has this as well. I try not go with crazy cuts that you can't find at, what I would consider a regular or common grocery store in the country. And then speaking also of budget, I recommend, sometimes what I do is I go with a thicker steak rather than 2 thin steaks, and that's what I did today. This was about 25 bucks, but rather than getting 2 thin ones, I just got a real thick one, and you want a thick one. It's about 1.5 inches to almost 2 inches. That way you can get a nice crust forming on the outside without overcooking the inside. You see these ones here, I got thinner ribeyes, and they just cooked too fast before I could get a crust, and then they got to well done, and I kind of overshot it a little bit. So what I've been doing lately is, if I don't want to spend that much, I'll just get 1 thicker steak, which I can cook, and then just split it between me and my wife, which is still a good amount of steak. Season it with just salt. I like to just use salt. I do it about a half hour to an hour before. If you want to dry brine it, you can do it 24 hours ahead overnight. But I just use salt at this point in the game. I don't really use a lot of rubs or anything right off the bat. I put the salt on there, then I let it sit for roughly a half hour as it pulls out all the moisture. And then after that, I will pat it down, dry again. So you don't want any moisture. The drier it is, the better crust you're gonna get. Okay, now that it has rested for about 30 minutes, you can see some more moisture has been drawn out. So go ahead and blot that off again. See, it's a lot of moisture on there. Give it a flip. Blot off this side. It's okay. Some of the salt comes off. We're going to put more on at the end, and it should have had time to go in there. Kind of absorbs it in. So let's get this side as well here. Number 4 is cook on high heat. I am going with the middle 2 burners on high and the outside 2 burners on low. My goal is to get somewhere between 450 and 500 degrees, and we're around 490 degrees, so that'll do, pig, that'll do. Then we'll put down a high smoke point oil. I'm using grapeseed, but I also like to use avocado oil a lot, and we'll let it sit on the griddle for a full minute. I'm just pulling it back up, make sure it doesn't run into the grease trap there. And I didn't immediately put the steak down. I want to let this oil sit for a minute, heat up, get nice and hot. Now we'll put down our steak. If you can remember this, I'd recommend laying it away from you. You don't want it to splash that hot oil back towards you, back towards your shirt or something, ruin it or get burnt. And I'm going to apply light pressure on the steak for 1 minute. Now I'm not smashing it. This is not a smash burger. Don't smash down your meat with your steaks. Don't do that. It's just light pressure with my spatula on there to make solid contact and form a crust. After a minute, I let it take off the spatula and let it go another minute without any pressure on it. Now I flip it to a new spot because you want to be a couple inches over. You don't want to go right where you just were, because that spot has dropped in temp because that's where the meat was sticking. And you can see we already got a really pretty good color on this side. I'm very happy with the crust that's forming. It's only going to get better. So on the next side, we'll do the same thing. 1 minute light pressure with the spatula on there. 1 minute without a spatula, not touching it at all. Then we'll flip it again, and another good crust starting. If we're just starting to, and this is a great start. We're only 4 minutes in at this point. We're starting to get a crust. I'm going to turn it on its side now. Make sure I do about 15 seconds on each side to sear it. The one side is to cook it through. The other side is the fat cap. And I'm actually kind of just putting more fat in there with the oil. After we sear both sides, I'm pretty happy with how it looks. And I'm going to move it to the corner where, if you remember, that burner was on low so it's not as hot up there in the corner. And this brings us to our next tip, which is the mushrooms and onions. I want to add some veggies. That's an 8-ounce carton of sliced baby Bella mushrooms and a small white onion right in that oil and that extra fat we got down there from the steak, from the fat cap. You could do salt and pepper, but I am usually just seasoning these with Montreal steak seasoning because it just kind of feels like it fits the meal. And I'm cooking all these right in the juices, just right in there, the drippings and all the goodness, while the steak is over on the other side. Tip number 6 is to finish with butter and herbs, and we're going to start basting this steak. That's 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 cloves of garlic, and crush them, and some rosemary. Now I let the butter melt in the garlic and rosemary and just use my spatula to kind of drip it on top and baste it. This is where you need to watch your temp though, because you want to get it to your level of doneness and probably pull it a little early. I wanted medium rare, but I let it sit too long because I was taking pictures for the internet and stuff and too wrapped up with the video. So I got closer to medium. But here's my temp chart on the screen that goes over the surface temps for griddle, what I like to cook different things at on the surface, or the griddle temperature, and the internal temperature of different meats of when I pull them off the griddle. You can get this for free if you sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. So you want to pull it about 5 degrees below where you want it to cook to, because it will continue to raise in temp as it rests. You can see I pulled mine at 130, which is medium rare on the chart, but it kept raising in temp, and probably by the time I cut it, it's around 140, and you'll see I think it's closer to medium. Also, this is when I sprinkle some Montreal steak seasoning on top of it while it rests. It's just kind of how I've been doing it lately. I just do salt at the beginning, and then I just do steak seasoning after I've cooked it. I heard someone say like the pepper and stuff is just gonna burn on the grill. So I like the way, I feel like it comes through pretty strong, and I like the way that's working out for me. This brings us to tip number 7, which is don't overdo it. While the steak rests, I'm gonna just keep tossing these mushrooms and onions. And don't forget about the garlic and butter that's in the corner. Mix that in with the mushrooms and onions as well. I think these are easy enough because you got a couple minutes while the steak rests. They cook quickly. You can just toss them right where the steak was cooking and, you know, mix them with everything. But I've done potatoes on the griddle before. I've done asparagus. I've even done sweet potato French fries. And that's all fine and well, but I usually get overwhelmed. And if this is your first time doing steak on the griddle, I would recommend just doing steak, maybe doing veggies. I mean, if you paid good money for this steak, let's just focus on getting a good crust, pulling it at the proper temperature, and maybe doing some onions and mushrooms. That's it. You know, if you put a ton of stuff on the griddle, you could get overwhelmed. That's why in this case, I just threw some sweet potatoes in the oven as my starch, and you know, my wife just kind of turned the oven off when they were done. I also add some Worcestershire sauce to the veggies right towards the end and then finish tossing them. Now, let's cut into the steak and take a look. I'm really happy with the crust. I feel like it got good color, but like I said, I probably overshot the temp a bit. I feel like it's medium with just a little bit of pink in the middle, but that's okay. My wife actually likes it cooked a little more than I do, so as long as she's happy, I'm happy. I still thought everything tasted great. Throw my mushrooms and onions up there on the cutting board with it. I hope these tips were helpful, and it helps you feel more confident when you make a steak on the griddle, and I bet it's going to turn out great. For more beginner griddle videos, check out my Griddle 101 playlist, which is on your screen now, and the free temp chart is in the description. Thanks for watching. Keep on griddling.